How many of you ever heard of the Hebrew word midrash? Just by show of hands, midrash. Good. A midrash is a rabbinic commentary on the Bible that clarifies legal points where we can derive lessons through literary devices. We use stories, parables, legends, and we use it to help understand, fully appreciate, and apply how it is that things happen in our tradition. The most famous midrash that we all probably know is the notion that Moses was a stutterer. He says he had uncircumcised lips, as it's told us directly in the Torah. Aaron becomes Moses' spokesperson. The rabbis ask, why was it that Moses stuttered? And many of you might have heard the famous story that Pharaoh put in front of Moses when he was young a bucket of coal that was hot and a bucket of gold. And if Moses went for the gold, then we would have known that he was wise and would have killed Moses. But if he went for the coal, he would have thought he was harmless and wouldn't be threatened at all. And the Midrash explains that Moses went for the gold, and in the last minute, the angel moved his hand to the coal. He touched the coal. It burned his hand. He instinctively put it in his mouth. It burned his tongue. And as a result, he forever became a stutterer. That's a well-known story in Jewish lore. And if you ask most observant Jews, most traditional Jews, most learned Jews, why it is that Moses stuttered, perhaps they'll tell you that story. Perhaps they'll say it says that story in the Torah, but it doesn't. It just says that Moses wasn't a good spokesperson. We attributed that story through our literary ability, through our literary license of midrash, through trying to explain pieces in the Torah. The most beautiful thing about a midrash is that it's open to anybody. Anyone can write a midrash at any time to offer any understanding that they choose on any situation in the Torah. So this Shabbat, I wrote a midrash, and with your indulgence, I'd like to share it with you. It's a midrash about a special animal called the ta'ut. Have any of you ever heard of an animal called a ta'ut? Well, of course you haven't heard of an animal called ta'ut. And here's why you haven't heard of the animal called ta'ut. The ta'ut was a unique animal. It was a little strange, a little different, but isn't every animal a little strange and a little different? In some ways it looked like a monkey, but could also fly. It didn't have hair, and it didn't have skin. It had feathers like a bird, but it walked like a monkey. It had a face similar to a monkey, but one unique characteristic that made it very different than a monkey. It had eyes literally in the back of its head. So, if the ta'ut wanted to face the ark, his body orientation would face exactly as I'm facing now, so he could see the ark. And if the ta'ut wanted to see all of you, the ta'ut would turn like this, so he could see, but his body would be facing in the other direction. This was the story of the ta'ut. Well, God tells Noah there's going to be a terrible flood, and tells Noah, this righteous, whole person, to gather all of the animals, all of the living flesh, and put them on this ark, all of them. So Moses does exactly as he's told by God. He takes the ark, starts building it, and gathers all the animals together. And they start boarding one by one. And there are the elephants, husband and wife, passports and tickets in hand, luggage, one asking the other, did you remember to turn off the lights? Did you remember to pack the underwear? All the things they need to know. And they're entering this ark, and standing by the door as guards, bouncers of sorts, on the left is the snake, the lowest animal of all, an angry animal for being punished for tempting Eve to eat the fruit that we just read about last week in the parashah. And on the other side of the door is the giraffe, the tallest animal of all, who's frustrated because no one can see eye to eye with the giraffe. And each animal makes their way in, handing their boarding passes off to the snake and to the giraffe, and the ta'ut begins to make its way into the ark. And the snake says, hold on, just a second. The invitation calls for all animals, but you're not really animal-like. You're more like a bird. You have feathers. You don't have hair or skin. I want you to stay right here. He says, well, I'm like other animals. There are other animals that don't have skin. They have feathers. Go, yeah, but those animals have a different orientation, and they don't fly. Yeah, but the dove is there, and the raven's there, says the Ta'ut. Yeah, but there's something a little unique about them, says the giraffe. When they talk to you, they look at you. You turn your back to us when you talk. We don't like the way that you are. And they held them on the side, and that's where they were. And so Noah stood up. He cried out, all aboard! The snake and the giraffe closed the door to the ark. It set sail, and the Ta'ut was left outside. The flood came, and it rained cats and dogs for 40 days. And after the 40 days, the dove comes with an olive branch, and all that was on the ark continues to live. Everything on the ark continues to live. But everything that was not on the ark ceases to exist. And that is the very reason why all of you never heard of the animal called the Ta'ut. Because the giraffe and the snake decided that the Ta'ut couldn't get on the boat. Now, there are a lot of things wrong in this midrash I shared with you. The snake was wrong for not allowing the Ta'ut onto the boat. The giraffe was wrong for not realizing it wasn't up to he and the snake to decide who was getting on the boat and who wasn't. Noah was wrong for not making a roll call before he set sail. And all of the other animals, from the hippopotamus to the elephant to the dove to you name it, from the aardvark on, was wrong for not saying to the snake and the giraffe, let the Ta'ut on the boat. And they were even wrong if they weren't by the door for saying, before we set sail, where is the Ta'ut? Where did he go? We can't leave without the Ta'ut. There's only one ark setting sail for all living flesh. This week was an eventful week for Bergen County Jewish community. It all began actually a little more than 3 weeks ago, when two Jewish men, products of the conservative movement, who met at Camp Ramah, the camping arm of the conservative movement, who were educated at the Solomon Schechter Day School, the educational arm of the conservative movement, one from this very county of Bergen, one who was educated at the Jewish Theological Seminary of America, the academic head and heart of the conservative movement, fell in love, decided that they wanted to commit their love to one another, and sent in a picture of the announcement of the ceremony that would commit their love to one another to the one Jewish community newspaper we have, entitled the Jewish Standard. The Jewish Standard 3 weeks ago printed a picture of the Jewish couple in love and all the details of what they do for a living, how they met, and where it was that they would be committed to each other. The next week, last week, another announcement appeared in the Jewish Standard. And in an effort to ensure that I don't do anything unfair, I'm going to read directly as quoted from the Jewish Standard. A group of rabbis has reached out to us and conveyed the deep sensitivities within the traditional Orthodox community to this issue. And the announcement that was made caused pain and consternation. The Jewish Standard has always striven to draw the community together rather than drive its many segments apart. We have decided, therefore, since this is such a divisive issue, not to run such announcements in the future. A lot has happened since both of those ads were put out, both of those statements. A lot of feelings have been hurt. A lot of emotions have been ripped open. A lot of names have been called, and a lot of accusations have been slugged. For any of us to act surprised that this is happening is naive. For anyone to act shocked that there's a falling out within the community is silly and uninformed. This is a sensitive issue, and it cuts to the core of many people and their identity as a human being, their identity and affiliation as a Jew, and the congruencies and incongruencies that we find in the Torah, in our tradition, and perhaps even in our community. This issue has bothered me very, very much. This issue does not bother me because we have a very large bisexual, gay, lesbian, or transgender community here at Temple Emmanuel. We do not. And I am not taking on this issue because I'm advertising my availability to perform commitment ceremonies, because I do not and I will not. But this is a troublesome issue for me because someone is standing at the door to our ark and telling another they can't come in. And frankly, I can't stand idly by, sitting silently, watching while all this unfolds and happens. What causes me the most pain, what bothers me more than anything else, is presenting a false reason for not allowing that ta'ut on the ark. For claiming the reason the ta'ut can't come on the ark is because it doesn't fit the criteria of any other animal on the ark. It's not like any other animal. There's no other animal that sees behind its head and that has feathers and that doesn't have skin and that has the look of a monkey but can fly. That's not a fair argument to say as a reason why the ta'ut cannot get on that ark. Couldn't the ta'ut turn to the snake and say that the snake is basically the only legless animal we have? And that for a snake to move its tail, it's the only animal in the world that has to move a muscle by its head for its tail to move, not including its brain? Did you know this about the giraffe? That every mammal has fur or hair on their bodies, and the giraffe does too. But what makes the giraffe unique is that its coat is special because it's like a fingerprint. Every single giraffe has a unique pattern. You will never find two giraffes that share the exact same pattern, just like a fingerprint. Could the ta'ut not have turned to the giraffe and the snake and said, but you're different and you're unique too? For me, arguing that the reason this celebration was offensive had to do with religious affiliation and religious passions and the prohibitions found in the Torah in Leviticus 18 is incredibly troublesome. Now, it's true. In the Torah that we read from today, not the portion, in Leviticus 18, it specifically says that a man shall not lie with a man the way that he lies with a woman, and that to do so is an abomination. It says it specifically. I have no issue with any man, woman, any person who says that the Torah says that. For any person who chooses not to live that style or to not appreciate or embrace that lifestyle for people who are gay because it's against the Torah, I have no problem with it. But the problem I have has to do with hypocrisy. Why is it that this was an issue that members of our community stood up with and raised their hand in protest? But meanwhile, there are other issues in the very same paper where the community is quiet. There are advertisements in the very same paper that show pictures and talk about activities happening on Shabbat or on a holiday, which is a prohibition of the very same Torah that we read today. There are pictures of food and events that happen that serve lobster and pork and shellfish that is a violation of that very same Torah that we read today. There are activities that happen that incorporate fashion shows and selling of clothes that mix wool and linen that is a violation of the very same Torah that we read today. And in the same celebration section, on a regular basis, there are announcements of young boys and young girls who become bar and bat mitzvahs, who are Jews by patrilineal descent, meaning their mothers are not Jewish, but their fathers are. We celebrate them in other synagogues around our community, and it's a violation of the very Torah that we read today. So my question is, why is it that this issue is a problem, but the others aren't? Why is it the ta'ut can't get on the boat? Because of feathers, or because of hair, or because of eyes, or because of orientation? But for all types of other animals who are unique and different, they're on the boat, they're saved. But this one can't be the case.